Hi guys, and welcome back to another new tutorial. My name is Manny, and in today's post I would like to show you guys a quick before and after retouching, again showing you guys all my steps and everything that I did from this before to after. If you're a new Photoshop user to intermediate, this might be a nice tutorial for you. If you are an advanced Photoshop user, this might be a bit boring because I'm not showing any new techniques. Alright, so let's get started. Okay, so let's start with taking our image straight here into Camera Raw. So I'm going to double tap on this and take this now into Camera Raw. Okay, so in Camera Raw, first of all, what I do want to try is work a little bit on my temperature here on the left hand side. So I'm going to select all of that and press in 4500 Kelvin. See how bluish that gets, and that doesn't suit that image at all. So I'm going to go over here and just tweak my temperature a little bit again, and just most probably going to take it up to 5400 to give it an even color and also get some nice contrast again, and to have just a little bit of a warmer touch here in my image. So let's go 54. So 5400 Kelvin for that, and I'm pretty happy with that. Okay, then also I do want to go here to my detail slider and give this whole image a little bit more sharpness, so sharpen up my raw a little bit. So let's take that up to around 70%, somewhere around here, and that already gets a little bit sharper. Let's quickly have a look here on the hair and more closer in the face what that will actually give us. So if we go all the way down to 7 again, you can definitely see that that detail is not that sharp. So if I'm going to take this all the way up to around say 70%, you guys can already see how this sharpened up my image. Then also let's take the radius down to 0.6, 0.5 just to break those pixels a little bit more. I'm going to press Command 0 now to just get that back into full screen. Okay, then also go back to my basic adjustments over here and also going to tweak my image just a little bit more. First of all, I'm going to try the exposure slide a little bit. Let's take that just another notch up to +10, +5. Or actually, let's keep it at 0 and first of all play just with our highlight slider over here. So I'm going to take the highlight slider just a little bit up just to boost those highlights a little bit on me. Okay, +11, that's alright. I'm also going to take the shadows down a little bit just to give that a little bit of contrast again. Just watch out, the saturation will go now up. If I'm going to take this all the way down, you will see that the skin actually gets a little bit more reddish. So I don't want to overdo that. Maybe just over here to -12, -13. Also, if we tweak the contrast, you will definitely see that that will get more and more red. So not tweaking the contrast too much. You can also double tap on here, set that to 0 again. I'm going to take the contrast up just a little bit, like say to +7 or so, just to give this image a little bit more contrast, especially on the shirt and also in the hair. Okay, let's go down a little bit more here on our blacks. I also want to tweak the blacks just a little bit to just give it another contrast and a pop. Okay, because with my blacks here, I don't increase that saturation so heavy. So -5, obviously if you go to the left hand side, this is now with CS6, you darken it more. On the right hand side, you lighten those black pixels a little bit more. Let's also go down here to saturation and just take the saturation down a little bit, not too much, that was too far already. So around -3, that's good enough. Okay, I'm going to go quickly here to my workflow options, have a look if that is in a smart object option here, and then going to say OK. And we're going to take that smart object now into Photoshop. So open object here, and that will take these directly to Photoshop. Okay, so over here in Photoshop, first of all, I'm going to press F now to make this nice and full screen. Okay, and over here on the right hand side, we have our smart object with our original layer. I'm going to rename this now to original. Okay, keep it to original. So first of all, what I'm going to do is make a copy of this, drag it all the way down to the new layer icon down here, and we've got a new copy over here. Okay, double click on here, I'm going to rename that to retouch, and that will be basically my first layer where I'm going to start retouching just this image. I'm also now going to rasterize this layer. I do want to save a little bit on my RAM, so I'm going to press right click and say rasterize that layer. Okay, then also let's zoom in a little bit over here. First of all, what I'll do now is just work a little bit with my healing brush tool on my face. It looks very distracting and a lot of stuff to retouch. So let's go over here to the left hand side, select the healing brush tool, and we're going to now make our brush a little bit bigger. I'm going to press Control Alt together and just feather this brush a little bit more. So completely feather, my hardness should be to 0. I'm also going to make my brush a little bit smaller. I can either do that with Control Alt again, select those both and move your mouse left and right to make your brush bigger or smaller, or if you're working like me with a vacuum continuous 4 board, you can do it via your board here with your brush size and just scroll it a little bit smaller. That is actually more handier because you can scroll now really quickly up and down, and using this board to retouch quicker. Okay, I'm going to sample now certain areas and just retouch the face a little bit and clean the face up a little bit. So with Alt, select an area close by, and I'm just going to brush here over my face and just clean all those lines. Okay, a little bit more. And that I'll most probably do for a few minutes. Just sit and retouch all these areas that I think needs to get a little bit covered up, and all wounds and everything that is just a bit distracting. I don't want to take out these lines over here. That's okay. I'm also going to retouch this a bit, and just a few dots here. Take a little bit the lines out under the eyes here, a little bit more left and right. Also over here, all the dots that I'm seeing. Then again, also pressing Alt, selecting an area, copy and sample, copy and sample. Okay, a little bit more here next to the nose, a little bit here. And they are actually already copied now, a little bit of that detail over. So I don't want to over copy this detail. So let's just go a few steps back here and go back with healing brush, press J, sample an area close by. And now I want to watch out for this pattern and texture, so I'm not sampling this texture here. Okay. A little bit down over here. Okay, that line can actually stay there. We can retouch this a bit. Some of these beauty spots here. Okay, so I'm going to retouch that out a bit. Clean up everything. This as well. A little bit the hair out. And a little bit more here. So let's retouch that. Also going over here to the side. A little bit over here. Okay, a little bit more. Okay, that was too much, so press Command Z or go back in your history palette here at the top. We're going to go back a step. Also select Alt again and just very close by. Just going to clean up this. And at the top, okay, a little bit more. I'm also going to make my brush a little bit smaller again. Select Alt again. So I'm going to sample from this area over here. And we're just going to sample close by. Okay, with a smaller brush as well. I'm also going to take this side, this dot out here. Okay, a little bit more. And now I've also got this red patch here, which I do want to take out. So first of all, I'm going to make my brush a little bit bigger. Select Alt again, select from here or sample from that area, and slowly going to brush over these areas here. Okay, a little bit more. And more. Okay. Okay, make my brush a little bit smaller again. Also select over here again and just slowly fading in. Okay, now obviously because we're working with the healing brush, this does happen that it smudges the black pixels here with our skin pixels. So let's press Command Z, go step back, and we can actually quickly create with a path. I'm going to switch over to the pen tool over here and just really roughly going to try to select a round area around here. Okay, and just covering the shirt. Close that path over here. Okay, press right click, say make selection, 0 feathering because I want to have a hard edge down here, and press OK. If you're not sure how to work with the pen tool, please feel free to have a look on my tutorials. I did a whole class on how to work with the pen tool. Now I'm going to go press J again for the healing tool. Going to select the area over here again with Alt. Sampling that and just really slowly going to brush over here. So now that's just affecting in here a little bit. Obviously it's giving a little bit of shadow, which I actually want. So that's fine. Just going to clean this up a little bit more. Okay, then I'm done. Pressing Command D, get out of that selection, zoom out a little bit again, and that looks already a little bit better. So let's see our before and after, before and after, before and after. Okay, also want to clean up just a little bit here on the arms, and then we're basically done with that ready. So with Z, I'm going to zoom in a little bit closer again, hold Alt just sample a few areas. You don't need to clean up as much as I'm doing, so I'll just have to do this now. That always depends also on your taste, if you do want to have a super clean skin or if you do want to show a few spots and marks. Okay, over here, and hold Alt again. I'm going to sample all these areas where here it's a little bit easier. You do have a lot of hair and a lot of the same texture, so it's a little bit easier just to sample all of these areas out here, these beauty spots. Okay, and a bit more, and I'm just taking out a few more just to show you guys also it's a bit easier on the hair here. Okay, and we're going to zoom out with Z again, and down here clean that up a little bit. Okay, here's also a long wound, so let's take that out all the way down here. Okay, a little bit more over here and over here. Also take this spot out again, trying to just have a look that the texture is the same. Okay, over here a little bit more, and we're gonna go and sample this area also out with a big consistent brush. Again, just one brush over it. That's good. Okay, over here a little bit, small dot. You can also have a look if your pen pressure sensitivity is set on here. If that is set on, you're working with a complete brush. If that is off, it's obviously working with your pen pressure on your Vacuum 4 board. Okay, zoom out a little bit, and that looks already a little bit better, a little bit cleaner. Everything looks a little bit nicer. Okay, so that's my first now layer just for cleaning up the skin. Actually, still a little skin here I want to retouch quickly. So let's just zoom in a little bit closer. Press J again. And just get out these necklines a little bit. Okay, make my brush a little bit smaller. Do the same process again. Obviously you can also sit longer and clean up the hair and do a lot of way more retouching actually. So I'm just doing this really roughly now and quickly. Over here so far I'm happy with everything. Maybe here at the top a little bit, sample just a bit this area. Okay, everything good. I'm going to zoom out a little bit again. Okay, and that's now before and after, before and after. Okay, I want to take this retouch layer now, make a duplicate of that again, so drag it all the way down to the new layer icon, and I'm going to write here details. Okay, so we have details now. Let's go and enter into a plugin now. So I'm going to go to Filter, Topaz Labs, Details 2, and you will need to have a plugin called Topaz Labs Details 2. So that plugin is loading now. Okay, so the plugin has opened, and first of all what I do want to do is just zoom in a little bit closer onto my image to also just see the details. I'm not too interested now what it will look like on the complete image. I just want to zoom in super close and see the details really in really good close-up. Okay, a little bit more. I'm going to zoom in one step more, and here we are. Okay, so over here now on the right hand side, first of all I want to try my small detail, so we're going to boost that up to 40%. So I'm going to over sharpen this image now a little bit, so as you guys can see already how strongly that boosts that image. Let's take a little bit more down, say just to 23%. Okay, that actually looks fine, looks a little better. So that's our before and after, before and after. Let's take it up a little bit more. So 30%, that resharpens a little bit. I also do want to try the medium details, so give the medium details another 10 to 20% over here. Okay, that just refined all the edges a little bit. So let's take that up a little bit more, 30%, and resharpen that again. Okay, let's see if we look in the eye. So that's our before and after, before and after. Okay, that looks very, very intense now, but it will most probably look very nice on the skin once we take the opacity down on another layer. Okay, so basically I'm happy now with this adjustment already. So small detail up to 30% and medium detail up to 30% as well. I'm not playing too much with all the small boost here, large detail and large boost. You can also play a little bit more with that and also try out the tones. For me, I'm happy now with this. I just want to use it to sharpen my image. Okay, hit OK over here. And we added now a lot of more details. Obviously sharpened the pixels way more, broke those edges a bit more. And now in Photoshop you can already see it. Our image looks way more detailed here. Let's zoom out a little bit more. It looks very, very sharp. A little bit too over sharp if you ask me. So that's the before and after, before and after. So super, super sharp. Let's take our details now all the way down just to around 20% or 25%. So I'm going to go over here, say 22, 24%. Before and after, before and after. Okay, maybe a bit more higher, 25%. Okay, and that's actually good enough. Not going to go deeper into that. Okay, and now what I also want to do is take these two layers here, press Command G, put that again to in a group, and just write here retouching and details. Retouching and details. Okay, and now I actually forgot a very important step, which is in the retouching layer already, to work a little bit with my liquifying tool. So I do have a little bit of a problem now. I should actually go a few steps back to the retouching layer, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go back here to the top, retouching and details, and press a master shortcut, which is again Command Alt Shift E, and we create a complete new layer. But now the case is, if we work on this, don't forget these three layers over here are kind of useless now, so you would actually have to go and do a mask out of this, or work a little bit refiner, like going back again and just working again on the retouch layer. Okay, but anyways, let's go back here, and I'm just going to write over here body build. Okay, and with this body build layer now, I'm going to go into my liquifier, and I just want to take in the cheeks a little bit over here. If I'm going to create a help layer quickly over here with the new layer, I can take my brush. I can quickly show you guys what I want to do. I just want to take in these sides a little bit over here, especially from the side, and maybe just warp in the ears just a little bit, just a small tad. Okay, so let's go and disable this layer. We can also rename this to our help layer. I normally work with help layers. Most of my students that take my courses would know that. Okay, body build, and I'm going to go back here into filter, and under filter we're going to choose liquify. So going into the liquify now, and over here in the liquify, first of all, as you guys can see, we zoomed in a little bit closer already, so that's good. I'm going to go to the left hand side and just take the normal move or warp tool over here. And also my brush is quite big already, so let's go to the right hand side here. Brush size is around 360. Let's change that to 360. Brush density around 50. I don't want to have it at 100%, otherwise it's going to work too intense. So brush density at 50, and my brush pressure also at 50, so I can work in small tads with this. If I'm going to set this all the way up to 100, it will be just very, very hard to work with this tool. Okay, so my brush size is now at 360, like I said. That's good enough for the ears, but for the cheeks that would be a bit too small. So let's go and first of all work on the ears here, and I'm just going to, with a small tap, work into the ears. I don't want to warp it with one long consistent stroke, rather just small taps in here, as you guys can see now. Tap, and I'm also selecting the area over here, tapping the ear all the way in, just moving it a bit, also the head here a bit. Okay, and now also going to work over here where I'm just working with the edge of that brush. A bit more tap, and a bit more in. Okay, and it looks a bit more like elf ears. Okay, but it's just a bit more in. If you have a look at this side, it's a bit more out, so over here it looks a bit better. Okay, let's do the same over here. Also tap, just move those in a little bit. And also going to go over the ear straight away. Okay, and that already starts to look a bit weird. So I'm not the best at doing this. I do look totally fake now. I don't look completely real anymore. So just watch out when you do this, that you're not over structuring things and breaking the real facial expressions. Okay, so that looks about right. I'm not too sure. I have to actually zoom out a little bit to get to see this on a better scale. So I'm going to go down here and also select minus, and that looks a bit closer, looks believable, so let's go with it. Okay, I'm going to zoom in a little bit closer here again, and also now just going to work a bit here on the cheeks. So first of all, my brush size again, I'm going to tweak that up maybe to 500, see where that takes me, if that is too big or not. I'm going to take again my normal warp tool over here, and it's still too small, so let's take it up another 600 or 700. So it's nice and big. Okay, say 700, that should work. Okay, type in 700. I'm going to zoom out a little step, that's easier for me to warp then. And I'm just going to tap here now into the center and just tap, tap, tap again, 1 or 2 taps in. I think if it's warped in a little bit, the ears will also look a little bit better with that. So take also the ears here, a little bit the head. So I'm just restructuring everything now. It's not the best way to do it, but just a small technique here showing you guys how to structure this a little bit. Okay, so this is just a small extra. I wouldn't do this necessarily on all images. This is all depends on your taste. Okay, brush size, I'm going to take that again to 200, so it's nice and small. I'm just going to tweak the lip here a little bit, showing that it goes up or something, and like just warping it a bit more. Trying to make a little bit of a creative image now also, so I'm just destructuring this whole face a bit. But anyways, okay, I'm happy with this now, so I'm going to select OK, and we're going to accept now this new perspective here, or the new facial expressions. Okay, let's also just turn this layer off and on, off and on. So we just warped in the ears a little bit more. We also worked a bit here on the cheeks, so that looks a little bit better already. Okay, so I look thinner in my face here. Let's also continue now with another adjustment layer. I do want to give this image a bit more of a pop, so let's go back to adjustment, and over here adjustment layer. So we're going to take our midtown sliders here just a little bit down, just to give this image a little bit more contrast. Obviously you can see the saturation goes up again, so we have to also consider doing something on that. I'm going to take the highlight slider over here now and just boost my highlights a little bit more. Okay, and now also going to go back to adjustment layers and also go to hue and saturation. First of all, I'm going to work in the masters and try that out, just taking my master saturation slider down a little bit. So let's go into the reds here and just tweak them a little bit, say to -5%. That's good. Okay, let's take all of these layers, Command G again, put that together in a group, and I'm just going to write here facial expression. Okay, and now also going to work a little bit with dodge and burn layers again. So first of all, I do want to create an empty layer over here, fill that up with my marking tool completely. Press right click and say fill. We're going to fill that again with a 50% gray. Okay. Move up and down a bit. Alright, so we got that. I'm going to rename this now to a hard layer over here. Okay, select hard layer, and I'm only going to do one layer now. Also going to make it back to overlay. Press Command D, get out of the selection. We're going to go over to our foreground colors here and switch them just back to black and white. Tap on the small icon here, so we have black now in the foreground color and white in the back. My brush again, pressing Control Alt together, moving left and right. So I'm going to make my brush a little bit bigger, and I'm also going to make my brush completely feathered, so 0 hardness. Okay, make this a bit smaller again. And now I do want to take the last step, which is moving my opacity here down to 0.7 settings, opacity to 0.7%. And I'm also going to work now on my overlay dodge and burn layer. Okay, zoom in a little bit closer, and first of all I do want to structure a little bit the beard. Okay, zoom out a little bit more, press B again, and I'm just slowly going to brush over this now. So select brush again. I want to also make my brush size smaller and bigger with my Vacuum Continuous 4 board. Very handy for me to have this board to always change my brush sizes really quickly over here. Okay, a little bit more. And a little bit more. So now I'm basically just structuring the face a little bit. Also going to do the beard a bit over here. Okay, and now going to a little bit go into the details over here, make this a little bit finer. Okay, and be very carefully when doing this. You want to always change your brush sizes just a little bit. Also going to refine the hairs over here. Also going to take this line, very constant, but change your brush size again, make it really small, so this becomes more prominent again. Okay, a little bit more, the eyebrows over here. Also my eyes, the bottom, and also a little bit in here. Just going along all these contours and just adding a little bit of contrast to all these small elements. Okay, going up a little bit, also doing the same here on the hair, just going once over the neck, the hairline here. Okay, a little bit smaller your brush, again a little bit in. Okay, a little bit over the hair, and we do have a top light here, so we're going to switch now in a moment back to white. Okay, so let's take our white foreground color, swap your foreground colors, and we now dodging a little bit these areas just to give a little bit more highlight in here. Okay, a little bit more, watch out that it's not too much burning out. Okay, we can also give the highlights here on the face a little bit, in the Rembrandt's triangle here a little bit, brighten that up a little bit. Also want to give these highlights here a little bit of a more of a push on the side as well here, a little bit on the beard, and also on the lips a little bit, just giving that, popping that highlight a little bit more. Okay, a little bit here on the nose. And also want to make a big dot here on the chin, just another really big brush dot. Okay, just brighten that a bit more. Also want to go a little bit into the eyes, just a little bit, brighten up those pupils a little bit. And now also going to work a little bit here on the highlights here in those areas, a little bit here and a bit on the forehead. Okay, I'm going to zoom out a little bit, and that looks a bit more brighter already. Let's also go down here and brighten this area a little bit. Okay, and now I'm going to go onto the arms and do exactly the same effects, but just over here. Make my brush a little bit bigger. Go to the back, also do that over here a little bit. Here on the thumb. Okay, and also going to brighten this a little bit. Just giving a few areas a little bit of a brightness. Swapping again with foreground colors here, so black is now in the foreground color again. Making a little spot over here, over there. Going along these lines, showing a little bit more. Okay, and also down here. And with one big brush over here, just broadening that. Also my saturation went up a little bit, but that's fine actually. So moving out a little bit. So we do have a little bit of a harder edge now with that dodge and burn layer. So as you guys can see, way more structure than before. But I don't want to take this layer now at 100 opacity, so I want to take it down to just 40%, so activate that. Okay, and let's have a look from a before and after. So that's a bit more intenser now, but not as strong as we had it before. Okay, so let's go back into adjustments over here and take one last hue and saturation layer. And again now in my red sliders over here, I'm going to just boost the reds down a little bit, so it's just desaturating this image just a little bit. Okay, so -8, that's fine for me. Okay, going to take these two last layers here, press Command G and rename this to Dodge and Burn. I'm happy with that now. Now lastly, going to create again a master shortcut, Command Alt Shift E, a last layer, and we're going to still go into the plugin again, and I just want to give this image a little last touch again with a plugin. Okay, so over here I'm just going to write look, and we're going to go back to filter, and in filter we're going to go to NYX Software Color FX Pro 4. Okay, so the plugin has opened, and first of all, again, I'm already on my ink preset over here, and I want to try out what the ink will look with the green. So let's take this all the way down again to around 10%, and that looks actually not too bad. Let's maybe just do a quick preview. So I'm going to swap here to the before and after preview over here. We can also make a split screen so we can actually see our before and after here. Okay, let's take also the strength up a little bit more, so say up to 15%. We do get a more bluish vibe here in our dark pixels, but I do love the tint to this. Okay, let's also try some different presets over here if we're going to get more contrast, what that will give us. Okay, not too happy. Let's go back to ink. So then also I'm going to select a new preset over here, which is cross process, and we're going to work a little bit with cross process. Have a look what that will give us. So on our right hand side with our color profiles here, let's play a little bit. This also looks pretty nice. So let's select BO2 and take the strength all the way up. It gets very, very greenish though. Let's take this a bit down and also play a little bit with our shadows over here. Okay, take the shadows back to just, we're losing a lot of contrast if we take this up and down. So plus 5%. Not really too happy with this. So let's continue with our color profiles here and have a look. This also looks pretty nice. CO4 with just a nicer punch over here, but still keeping this orange reddish vibe. Let's also try it at 21%. Okay, say 25%. Pushing this a bit more, giving this more saturation again. Okay, 25%. Also try the shadows. If we take that up a little bit, lose a bit that contrast, though it actually looks pretty nice. So keep the contrast, and let's push our highlights. Okay, that takes the highlights completely out, so also leave that at 0%. Okay, I'm going to accept this now and say OK over here, and that will just pop my image a little bit more now. but obviously our saturation went all the way up again. Okay, so that boosted intensely. Now if we're going to have a look before and after, looks already a bit nicer. Let's also try what it will look like with an adjustment layer on just desaturating again our reds. So in hue and saturation again, I'm going to go back into reds and just desaturate the reds just a little bit again, say to -13, -10. Before and after, we do get a little bit of a bluer touch again into this. Let's zoom a little bit closer. Hold spacebar. I'm also going to go look on the shirt here. Okay, let's have a look before and after. We do have a lot of blues again in this. Before and after. Not completely happy with this, so I'm going to go back to adjustment layer and also going to select a selective color over here. Okay, press Command 0, go back into full screen again. I'm going to go back to color palette here and back into the neutrals. And now on the neutrals, I do want to also adjust again my color sliders over here, just to try if I can get a bit better color to this. So first of all, I'm going to play a little bit with my cyan, take it all the way to the left. That gets way more reddish. On the right hand side, more green and blue again. So I'm actually a fan of adding a little bit more contrast again to this. More red contrast. So -2, let's try that for the start. Magentas left and right. Okay, if we go to take the magentas all the way to the left, we're going to get more and more green. Keep that actually to 0. Yellows, let's take that left and right. Okay, if we're also going to just make that more of a yellow image again. Okay, right again. I'm just not happy yet with the skin here. So the blacks also take that. Yeah, that just saturates the skin again. Okay, still not happy with this. Let's give another try. If we go to layer, new fill layer, and say solid color over here. Then also my new fill color here should be set to a normal different blending option mode, to color blending mode. Over here, color, and I'm going to say OK. And first of all, I do want to select the color here from the straight image. So say OK, blend this off again. And now we double click again onto the color picker here again, and I'm just going to sample the green from around here where it's a bit lighter. Okay, and I'm going to accept this now. So my complete image is now green, right? But I'm going to take it all the way down to just 10%, just to give my skin here a little bit of that green, which you can see already. So let's take it a little bit more, say 5%. Okay, and that looks a little bit better already. Let's say 4% or 3%. Just a small touch to that. Okay, and that's actually better now. So I'm happy now with this. Let's also take all of these layers again here, create a group quickly, Command G, and we're going to write here look. But I'm now still not completely happy. One last step, Command Alt Shift E, and I'm going to take it once more back into my plugin called Nik Software Color FX Pro 4. Okay, so we have our new layer. Let's go back to filter. We're going to go to Nik Software Color FX Pro 4, and I'm just going to add a little bit of that ink touch to it. Okay, and we're going to go all the way to our preset ink, and with this ink I'm also going to take it all the way down just to give those blacks here a little bit of a blue touch and also get another pop in the highlights. But those are a bit strong, so let's take it just to 3%. Also take our highlights back to 10%, 11%, okay, and that already boosts our image a lot more. Say okay over here, it's going to import that again, and boom, now we have again another new color push. As you guys can see, this brightens the highlights way more and pops this whole image a little bit more, and we do have more contrast again. If you're not too happy with it, we can also take the opacity maybe just to 70%, so it's not completely strong or that over strong. Okay, so that's basically all. Now I'm going to create again a master shortcut, Command Alt Shift E, and we're just going to rename this to our final layer, and we're most probably going to crop it a little bit, and then I'm done. Okay, so then also going to rename this now to final, okay, and going to go into the crop tool over here, and I'm just going to crop this a little bit, or actually not going to crop my frame over here, otherwise everything will be different now. So go back into my final layer, going to press Command T and just make my image physically a little bit bigger. Okay, that's way too big. Let's go to Navigator, zoom out a little bit, zoom in a little bit. Okay, press Command T once again, hold Shift, select the anchor point over here, and just going to drag this a little bit better so it just fits a bit better with this side. Okay, a little bit more, and that's okay. It's going to select that, and now we have physically our new layer once that has transformed. Okay, so that's basically now all I'm going to do to this image. So here's a quick before and after again. So that was our before and after, before and after. If you still feel like it now, you can add again another little bit more of a sharpness to it, but I do think this image is sharp enough already. If you save this now and print it out, it will be very, very sharp. Okay, let's go out a little bit again, and that's now basically our before and after. Okay, yeah, so that's basically all for today's tutorial. Please do let me know in the comments down below what you think of this. Give me a thumbs up for showing all my secrets here, and also don't forget to subscribe for some future tutorials. Thank you guys, and see you all in my next video. Bye bye.